What's up, guys? It is Ryan from the Kingsman Report, and it is actually Thursday, November the 28th. It's Thanksgiving Day. So, today I'm going to cover a bunch of news that came out yesterday. They blocked my stream yesterday because certain words I was using, so my stream got shut down. So I'm going to cover a bunch of the news that was actually from yesterday that ended up being covered from other guys that pretty much do the same thing. I'm going to cover that news, and then I have a bunch of news that actually came out today. So I'm going to get situated here. If you want to call in, the number is scrolling across the bottom of your screen. There's also an open chat. If you want to share any articles with me, then you can send them to kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com. And as always, you can call in and discuss those articles you send in, or you can discuss any of the articles that I speak about here. With that being said, you guys sit back in your FEMA region, and I'll get into this very shortly. Alright, so today is Thanksgiving for those who celebrate Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I'm going to talk about, I have all sorts of topics here to talk about today. Like I said, a lot of it has to do with news that came out yesterday, and a lot of it has to do with stuff that came out today, and different topics that have arisen. I guess one of the articles that I read a couple days ago is that Turkey planned on basically testing their S-400 missile-to-air defense system that they bought from Russia, and I think it was like 2016, 2017. Well, they actually tested those. So there's that. I also talked about an article that had to do with Trump signing a basically I guess a formal not law per se, but support for the people of the protests going on in Hong Kong, and he signed it as of yesterday, I believe, and China's not so happy about that. So I don't see anything probably going much further with the the Chinese and America trade agreement that he's trying to land, but it looks like to me he made the right decision. People's lives are obviously more important than money, so he did that. I'm just going to go into some stuff here. I got some interesting articles. A lot of it has to do with military stuff that's going on, and people flexing their muscles, showing off their artillery, and just different things like that. Like I said, I was trying to cover this last night, and my stream got blocked a couple times. So it is what it is. If you're listening to this on the podcast, which the majority of people do, rather than the stream, you can always tune in Monday through Friday on the Kingsman Report on either DLive, Twitch, or on YouTube. I also stream on my Periscope, and that's under my personal name there. And you can check that out live. I'm not monetized on any platform. The only stuff I'm monetized on is my podcast. And people in other countries seem to be more interested in the stuff that's going on with our country than the people that this will actually have an effect on. So the first article, you see it there in your little window. It says the American life expectancy is now falling due to drugs and suicide, and this is really a sad thing. And it seems to be a cause of, or the effects of the opioid epidemic, so addiction from that, and then alcohol poisoning, obesity, and suicide. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this, and we'll talk about this article. Like I said, if you guys want to, you can call in. The number is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I don't know how long the stream is going to be today. I have quite a few articles that I want to get to today, so we're going to go ahead and start this off. It says the American life expectancy is now falling due to drugs and suicide. It says the American life expectancy has steadily dropped since 2004, and the cause appears to be grim, ranging from suicide to the opioid epidemic. It says previous reports revealed a consistent decline in the American men's life expectancy over recent years, but a new and far more comprehensive study published Tuesday in the Journal of JAMA shows that the problem is much broader and more systematic than previously thought. Some of this stuff doesn't necessarily surprise me. I'm 37 and I grew up in kind of like a party, rave and go to raves and all that type of stuff, but some of it's not necessarily surprising to me. It says, while it didn't identify any cause of death as the lone culprit, according to the Washington Post, the study pointed towards growing problems like the opioid epidemic, suicide, and health issues like obesity. As long story short, the average life expectancy for both men and women has now been falling for several years. The death rate for adults in the U.S. per 100,000 people increased by 6% between 2010 and 2017, according to the study. And it seems to be uniquely an American trend. It's supposed to be going down, as in other countries, lead researcher Stephen Wolf from Virginia Commonwealth University told WAPO. The fact that the number is climbing, there's something terribly wrong. It says the data becomes even more troubling when broken down by gender. Men tend to be more at a forefront of the stories about decreasing longevity because their life expectancy has dropped more than women's. But the study shows that women are dying specifically from diseases, suicide, and alcohol poisoning at a more rapidly growing rate than men are. This report has universal relevance. Study researcher Howard Koh, who didn't work on the new study, told WAPO it has broad implications for all society. So the deal is with this. I don't support, the safe injection facilities that they have. I don't support Trudeau's belief that he's going to use taxpayers' incomes in order to buy drugs to help support people's addictions. I don't believe in that type of stuff. I think that coming to the realization that you're stronger than the object that has subdued you into this type of feeling or addiction. You got to come to that mindset. Are you going to let something so minuscule have a hold of you, or are you going to, mentally engage the problem and become, or have a stronger frame of thought than just, being a slave to an object? I speak from experience on this. Not a needle addict or anything like that. I was in a car accident in 2001 after high school where I almost died. I was in intensive care, and opioids were given to me at that time, and I became addicted to them and spent a lot of years of my life just chasing that addiction. But I mean, alcohol poisoning stuff, it's not surprising. I mean, people go out and they do that type of stuff and party or whatever, but life's more important than drugs and alcohol. Just wish people younger would discover that truth before it's too late. Okay, so this article's on American whistleblowers, and I've talked recently in some of my articles that I've read. One in particular has to do with Julian Assange. Whether you may hate him or love him, or think he is a traitor or committed treason or whatever, I think if it weren't for him or Snowden, then we wouldn't know a lot about what goes on in this world when it comes to spying for our government or using corporations to violate our Fourth Amendment, so that our protections from the Constitution on our Fourth Amendment that protects us against government's infringement upon our privacy is easily handed over to corporations who in turn do it for them. And that's the truth. If you don't believe me, just look up some of his interviews and he'll tell you the truth. They can't necessarily do it, so they hire corporations, they have contracts with corporations, and then they allow the corporations to do the spying. And it's not necessarily that they allow them to, but when you go through the permissions of an app that you download, you just kind of nonchalantly 90% of the people that I know don't even read the permissions. They just okay it, and well, we want access to your microphone, your camera, and your photos, and then we're just okay, and then it just opens a door for all types of spying or whatever you want to call it. So this article, it actually goes into, it says how America fails its whistleblowers. It says whistleblowing in the U.S. is fraught with enormous peril, and the government employees who work with classified information, the options available are far riskier. In some ways, whistleblowing is a time-worn American tradition. Since the American Revolution, when sailors blew the whistle on corrupt Navy captain who tortured British prisoners of war, there have been protections on the books for people brave enough to come forward. But people working in the intelligence community, those protections have been recently become codified. And it says in 1998, one of the first whistleblower protection laws for intelligence community workers was passed, and it laid out a process for how to expose wrongdoing. It says that process, however, only provides one narrow option: seeking permission from your own agency, the very agency that may be the perpetrators of wrongdoing, before your complaint can go to Congress. It's almost like an artery that's heavily blocked, says Tom Devine, the legal director of Government Accountability Project. They have to first go to the agency where they worked, the institutions where they begin, where they're being accused of misconduct. So the case of Thomas Drake, a National Security Agency executive who complained about a secretive and wasteful post 9/11 surveillance program, highlights the pitfalls of this process. Even though Drake went through proper channels with his complaint, he was still met with retaliation and eventually prosecution. That case was really by far the most Kafkaesque, high-profile case. They saw 35 years of incarceration, Devine said. Laws that protect intelligence community whistleblowers against retaliation weren't passed until 2012 under President Barack Obama. Ironically, Obama set another type of precedent. His Justice Department prosecuted more government workers who leaked information to the media than any of the previous administrations combined, using the Espionage Act, a 1917 law intended to prosecute spies working with foreign governments. Goes on to say Thomas Drake was the target of one of those cases, and Donald Trump's administration is on track to match the record. It says in a quote, "You can literally seek imprisonment for someone for whom it would be illegal to fire them," Devine also said. Said whistleblower advocates say new laws that allow intelligence community employees access to civilian court for recourse, plus providing greater guarantees of anonymity, would go a long way towards fixing the current whistleblower protections. Until then, more people may just stay quiet. And on this is like I said, Whether you like him, like them, or you hate them, we wouldn't know a lot about what's going on if it weren't for certain guys coming forward who didn't agree with the types of influence or invasion that our governments were having in our private lives. They're in everything, whether you believe this or not. It's like I said, and one of our founding fathers said it also. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson. But corporations take over. So if the government has a small reach into what we do, if we're protected from our government against our invasion of privacy, if they want to have a reach into our private life, if they want to access certain information, now instead of going through the NSA like they were doing initially, that we found out through Snowden, well, now they're just hiring corporations to do it on their behalf. And then if they think we're up to something no good or nefarious, then they can go to those corporations that they have contracts with and inevitably get a warrant and seize all the information that they believe is against the will of the government. So it is a real thing. If you don't think that it is, it is. But on to the next article. So this is sad. I read an article. I covered this, and a whole lot of people on the internet covered this. This article came out that there were 39 Vietnamese people that were found dead in a refrigerator truck over in the UK last month, and it's a legend that they died of suffocation from being in the back of the truck for so long. Well, this article, as you can see on your screen, it says, with tears and white roses, Vietnam receives first bodies found in British truck. And I apologize if I don't pronounce the names correctly. But it says, with tears in their eyes and white roses in their hands, friends and relatives of 39 Vietnamese people were found dead in the back of a British truck last month, sobbed as the first bodies to be repatriated arrived in rural Vietnam on Wednesday. It said the bodies of 16 victims arrived in Southeast Asia country in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Vietnam's foreign ministry said in a statement. It says, after waiting for so many days, my son has finally arrived. It was quoted by saying, Nguyen D.G., father of a victim, Nguyen D. Long, told reporters. It said, under gray and rainy skies, a parade of ambulances snaked through crowds of mourners in the rural town of Dien Chau, Nguyen, in province, from which some of the victims began the doomed journey. It says 5 of the 16 bodies would be returned to Nguyen as Nguyen An on Wednesday, an official there said. It says, we are deeply saddened but we have to hold back the emotion to organize the funeral for my son, Jia said by phone from neighboring Ha Tinh province, where another 10 victims were from. Cloth-wrapped coffins arrived in Hanoi's Noi Bai airport early on Wednesday and were loaded into the back of a fleet of waiting ambulances, state media showed. It says the bodies would be taken to the homes of their next of kin in Nguyen An, Han Thi, and Quang Binh province, the foreign ministry said. Vietnamese and British authorities continue to cooperate and repatriate the remaining bodies, it added without giving further details. Police in Vietnam have arrested 10 people in connection with the deaths. On Monday, the British driver of the truck admitted plotting to assist unlawful immigration and acquiring criminal property. It says this is a very difficult time, Britain's ambassador to Vietnam, Gareth Ward, said in a video statement released on Wednesday. But I promise to families and Vietnamese people as whole that we will continue to boost the cooperation between the UK and Vietnam to prevent human trafficking and protect vulnerable people here. So this goes on, it says, funeral for a friend. It says the grisly discovery last month on an industrial estate near London a magnet for Vietnamese migrants, has shone a spotlight on people smuggling trade, bringing the poor of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East on perilous journey to the West. In Vietnam, poor job prospects, environmental disasters, and the promise of financial rewards are all factors pushing people to leave. Even though the cost of getting to Europe can run into the thousands of dollars for migrants ready to pay for the so-called, quote, VIP service, believe they can make enough money to justify the risk. A family of the victims, all aged between 15 and 44, have been plagued by confusion and anguish over how to get the bodies home. The families would have to pay the repatriation of the bodies, costing up to £2,208 or $2,830 US American each, according to the Foreign Ministry statement seen by Reuters. The November 14th statement said the Vietnamese government would advance the payment, which families could repay later, which is nice of them. Excuse me. It says among the victims was 18-year-old Hong Van Teep, and the youngest of three siblings, who dropped out of school at the age of 15 and left illegally for France, and a year later, where he worked in a Vietnamese-owned restaurant. He had begged his parents to help fund his, quote, VIP move to Britain, and they have tried to persuade him not to go, but eventually relented, his mother told Reuters. It says at his family home in Ding Shao on Wednesday, devastated relatives surrounded his coffin with flowers, incense, and large photograph of Tiep wearing a calm and confident expression upon his face. It says the friends described him as a young, cheerful, and, quote, looking for love. Just horrible that has to happen. In this country, it seems, we take for granted a lot of the stuff that we have here. And these people just want an opportunity of freedom by any means, and don't necessarily know what they're paying for whenever they come here. And then, this tragedy happens where 39 of them end up suffocating in the back of a refrigerator truck over in the UK, and now the families are having to deal with that loss. So I tell everybody, regardless of your religious preference, just pray for the families involved in this. It's tragedy that something like this had to happen. The people that do this stuff, man, y'all just gotta find a better means of making income than smuggling people like this into countries, So, if you guys don't know, there was an earthquake in Albania, and this article actually goes in to say rescuers in Albania use drones and dogs to find quake victims. It says emergency crews using drones, dogs, and diggers recovered 5 more bodies on Wednesday from the rubble of Albania's worst earthquake in a decade, bringing the death toll to at least 27. It said the town of Thuman closed to the center of Tuesday's 6.4 magnitude quake. A woman stood in front of a collapsed building calling out for help to find her niece. Rescuers worked for found several bodies soon after sunrise and in the afternoon, and it says food was distributed to thousands of people in Thuman, many still waiting for news of family and friends. A 5.3 quake struck just off Albania's coast on Wednesday afternoon, 38 kilometers or 24 miles from the capital of Tirana, where some shaken by the terror shut down their shops. The Defense Ministry also briefly suspended all rescue efforts following the sizable aftershocks. This is one of the busiest streets in Albania main port, a tourist resort of duress. 2 people were feared trapped in the rubble of a collapsed hotel. This is in a quote, "We don't know whether they are alive or not," said Merit Erescuel, a rescue worker from Turkey. Temperatures in Albania were expected to remain well above 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit in the coming days, but rain forecast for Thursday could hamper rescue efforts. Countrywide, the Defense Ministry said about 650 people have been injured and another 20 people reported missing. The death toll continues to rise. The earthquake could be more deadly than the one in 1979 when 40 people were killed. So the quake the quake centered 30 kilometers west of Toronto, was felt across the Balkans and in the southern Italian region of Puglia, across the Adriatic Sea of Albania. Located along the Adriatic and Ionian Sea between Greece and Montenegro, Albania is prone to seismic activity. A quake measuring 6.0 also jolted the Greek island of Crete on Wednesday, though no damage or injuries were reported, which is pretty amazing. I remember when that one, I got an alert as soon as that one happened. This is at least 250 aftershocks, 3 of the magnitude 5, shook Albania, continuing into Wednesday, and hundreds of people spent the night sleeping in tents pitched by emergency services. So as always, pray for the people in Albania. They're human beings, like the rest of us. So let's continue to pray for these guys. This article, I know our Central Intelligence Agency has a lot to do with, the going-ons with discord in other countries, or, provoking a catalyst that causes people to be even more irate than they are in certain situations. And reading this article last night is what initially got my stream dropped twice. And I'm going to read it anyway, so if my stream drops, so be it. But it says Iran says it arrested 8 with CIA link during unrest. It says Iranian security agencies arrested at least 8 people linked to the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency during last week's unrest over gasoline price hikes, the official news agency IRNA reported on Tuesday. It says these elements have received CIA-funded training in various countries under the cover of becoming citizen journalists. The IRNA quoted the intelligence ministry as saying, quote, 6 were arrested while attending the riots and carrying out CIA orders, and 2 while trying to send information abroad. So, look at it this way. Stay out of other people's bull crap that's going on right now. Just stay out of it. I don't know why we have to be involved in everyone else's dispute, but so if you saw the thumbnail, it's titled Into the Fog. This is what I find crazy about this. So they'll tell you thimerosal in the inoculations is low dosages of it aren't harmful to the human body, and that's obviously a lie. So they reworded it from mercury to thimerosal. Well, this article came out yesterday, and it says an alarming amount of toxic mercury can be found in coastal fog. So my question is, if they say just a minuscule portion of it is in the inoculations that they give people in the United States, that's okay. But this article is saying that, even breathing in a little bit of this, toxic fog is bad for your health. So what is it? No mercury fillings, but thimerosal in the shots, but breathing in mercury can be damning for your health. So it's just crazy. Just back and forth with this. Don't, if you're for the shots, do whatever you want to. It's whatever, man. But I'm telling you, even though the body may produce it, it may be in food, like fish, whatever. Too much of it is definitely not good for your health. So this article is nuts. It's from a study that was done. It says it's been nearly 40 years since John Carpenter's cult classic horror film, quote, The Fog, was unleashed upon the world. And it continues to haunt us in some unexpectedly realistic ways. It says in the film, a deadly supernatural fog engulfs California coastal town, killing all those who wander into its mist. Now it turns out this zany plot might actually contain more truth than fiction, and living in coastal communities everywhere might bear serious consequences. A new study of the University of California, Santa Cruz has detected alarming levels of toxic mercury in California coastal fog. It says this research is just the latest confirmation that this neurotoxin can be carried in fog deposited on land and found within the food chain, according to science.org or phys.org. Says the first warming sign occurred when researchers studying mountain lions in California Santa Cruz Mountains measured dangerous concentrations of mercury in cats' system. At least one line studied had mercury levels known to be toxic to species like mink and otters, and 2 others had, quote, sublethal levels that reduced fertility and reproductive success. A deeper look found that mercury contamination in coastal environments runs far deeper than what was found in the lions, though. A study led by Peter Weiss Penzias, I'm probably pronouncing his last name right, an environmental toxicologist who has pioneered the study of pollutants in coastal fog, also found that mercury levels in lynxen and deer were significantly higher inside the fog belt than beyond it. The correlation of elevated mercury levels with the fog zone made the source of toxin obvious. It was in the fog. Lynxen don't have any roots, so the presence of elevated methylmercury in lynxen must come from the atmosphere, said Weiss. Mercury becoming increasingly concentrated in organisms higher up the food chain. The lynxen eat the deer, which get eaten by the mountain lions, and due to the process known as bioaccumulation, by the time the mountain lions get exposed, the mercury has been magnified by a significant degree. What begins as a trace amounts of methylmercury in tiny water droplets floating through their air becomes life-threatening levels of deadly neurotoxin. It says what's in this stuff. It says in collecting data for the study, Weiss recalled of his own tale of what led into doing toxicology research on the fog. He says once while riding his bike along the coast, he thought to himself, I was riding through an absolute fog storm with water droplets off my glasses, and I wondered what's in this stuff. When he collected samples and brought them into the lab for testing, the results surprised everyone. The lab called me saying they had to rerun the test because they didn't believe the numbers, quote, he recalled. He says, while this latest study was performed on California's coastal ecosystem, researchers warned that they found there can likely be found in coastal fog around the world. That's because the source of mercury in coastal fog is from the ocean, and the world's ocean have fairly enough distribution of this toxin across the planet. The oceans aren't to blame, though. We are. The increased amount of mercury found in the ocean is directly connected with the increased amount of pollution generated from mining and coal-fired power plants from the world. It says in a quote, mercury is a global pollutant, explained Weiss. What's emitted in China can affect the United States just as much as what is emitted in the United States. An international treaty was adopted in 2013 to protect humans and the environment from mercury. That was called the Minamata Convention on Mercury, named after a Japanese city that suffered a terrible incident of mercury poisoning. It says Weiss Penzias hopes that the latest research will bring attention to the fact our coastal system are especially impacted by this dangerous toxin. It's important for the future of that treaty to understand all different ways that mercury impacts the environment, he was said in a quote. I don't get it. Like I said, you can have mercury fillings, but you can put thimerosal in shots, and that's not harmful. But it just breathing it in is what I mean. They don't ever test anything. It's they like with the inoculations, for instance. They don't test the fetal tissue that they use to solidify the vaccinations. They don't use any type of testing in order to take the fetal tissue that they took from aborted baby fetuses, HEC293 cells, put those into the inoculation to solidify it. They don't test it, and all that stuff comes from what they say, the 60s. So I don't know. It's like you read articles like this, and then you start to ask questions. What's good and what's bad? You can't breathe it in. That's bad. You can't put mercury fillings in people. That's bad. But you can put mercury in inoculations, and that's good. Makes no sense. I'm telling you a little bit of mercury at all. Whether, look, if you're eating it in fish, it's obviously in the fish. But if you're just injecting mercury or you're just breathing in a substantial amount of it, obviously not good. So this article, you can see a picture there on your screen. It looks like a flashlight hitting an LED light hitting a camera, but astronomers reveal a stunning new image of an interstellar comet coming towards us. It says, we spotted in August a mysterious object shooting through the solar system on a strange hyperbolic trajectory, implying that whatever this thing was, it wasn't from around here. Subsequent analysis confirmed this visitor from deep space, now designated as 21/Borisov, was only the second interstellar object ever detected in our solar system, and the first comet. And we just got brand new close-up look of it. It just looks like a light in darkness. But it says a team of astronomers from Yale University captured the stunning image of the 21 Borisov on Sunday using the WM Keck Observatory low-resolution imaging spectrometer in Hawaii. It says that white ghostly shroud surrounding the icy comet, which is currently drawing nearer to Earth, is called a coma, a cloud of gas and dust that drives into space as the object's icy nucleus sublimates in the heat of the starlight. In the case of the 21/Borisov, much of this outgassed matter trails behind the comet with an epic tail that currently measures almost 100,000 miles long, over a dozen Earth diameters in a row. It's humbling to realize how small Earth is next to this visitor from another solar system, says one of the Yale team, Peter von Dukem. 21/Borisov is projected to reach its closest approach to the Sun in early December and Earth later this month, after which it will continue on its way out of our cosmic neighborhood, making what remains of its icy mystery with it to whichever distant stars beckon next. If you look at the picture there, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this later on the podcast, I mean, it clearly looks like to me someone shining an LED light in a camera. Yeah, it's not much to it, but whatever. I think this app is hilarious. Or this article. I think this article is hilarious. And I don't know like how many people use dating apps or whatever, and there's no shame in doing it. It is what it is. With the internet being so relevant nowadays, a lot of people are just, that's what they do. But anyways, I think this is funny because this cat, he created a dating app because he was tired of like having to compete against other men. So he basically created this app called Singularity. So when women log on to this app, he's the only cat on there. He's the only dude, and it's just women add on to it, and he's the only dude on there. And so basically, he's the only pick. Don't know how it's working out for him. Hopefully good. If his intentions are good or whatever, but it's pretty smart of him to do something like this. But it says Singularity saves you countless hours of swiping, says Aaron Smith, 31, by just matching you with me. It says one North Carolina man is hoping to meet, quote, the one after creating a dating app with only one guy available, him. After striking out on other dating apps, Aaron Smith said he noticed a major issue keeping him from landing more dates. The biggest problem with the other apps is that my face is not featured prominently, he told CBS affiliate WFMY. The solution, the 31-year-old man from Greenboro concluded, was to effectively eliminate all other competitors. He said in a quote, if life gives you lemons, you should first make lemonade, he explained. Then he goes on to say, then you make sure no other companies can produce or distribute their own soft drinks. So the only game in town is, quote, lemonade. After asking his software engineer friend to help, Smith released a new dating app, Singularity, which he's the only man allowed. Unlike other popular apps like Tinder or OkCupid, women who sign up for Singularity won't be greeted with seemingly endless carousel potential matches each time they swipe. Instead, they will meet with a rotating collection of pictures that only feature Smith. There are photos showing Smith in Santa Claus hat, playing the guitar, and jumping in front of an ice cream truck, all sure to be featured prominently on the app. The dude definitely has a sense of humor, if anything. I mean, females should appreciate that. So, I have this article, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess they're doing this because animals have, these cows have anxiety, I guess. I don't know. But this article says Russian cows get VR headsets to, quote, reduce anxiety. I'm just going to read this like this. Just funny. I mean, it says a Russian farm has given its dairy cows virtual reality headsets in a bid to reduce their anxiety. The herd donned VR systems adapted for the structural features of cow heads and were shown a unique summer field simulation program. Moscow's Ministry of Agriculture and Food cited research, which they said has shown a link between cows' emotional experience and milk yield. Initial tests reportedly boosted the overall emotional mood of the herd. As according to a statement from the ministry, the experts took a place at Rusmalako Farm in Moscow's Ramensky district, and examples of dairy farms from different countries show that a calm atmosphere and the quantity and sometimes the quality of milk increases markedly. The researchers will examine the effects of the program in a long-term study that developers reportedly hope to expand the project if positive results continue. So they're putting, look at the picture of this if you're watching this. Let me zoom in on this. These cows, like, seriously, have virtual reality headsets to help with their anxiety, I guess, just to create more milk. And if you're listening to this, you can check out all the links in the description if you want to read some of this. If you're just tuning in, you're more than welcome to call. The phone number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It's 1-408-638-0968. And then enter the meeting ID, 534-233-4785, and you can call in. If you want to send an article, kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com, and you can get it quickest to me through Hangouts. And then we can talk about those articles as well. Now, this I thought was funny. I don't know if anyone really watched Elon Musk reveal the new shatterproof truck. This I thought was funny. His Cybertruck is crazy. If you haven't seen it, I implore you, go check it out. It's something out of like, what is that damn movie? Can't even think of the name of it right now. It's like an end of the world truck, basically. It's solid steel. It's got solid steel, roll cage in it. Allegedly like bulletproof glass or whatever, but they bust the window out. But this I thought is funny because Lego is trolling Musk with this picture, and I thought it was funny. It says, Lego trolls Tesla with its own shatterproof truck. This Tesla Cybertruck took another brutal hit when Lego stepped into the ring. The toy company posted a rudimentary car made of stacked bricks and plastic wheels to the company's Australian Facebook page on Monday. The image is similar to the promotional image of the Cybertruck, Tesla's thoroughly mocked first electric pickup truck. CEO Elon Musk debuted the Cybertruck in Los Angeles last week, touting its, quote, indestructible design as part of the demo. he had Tesla's lead designer Franz von Holzwin, I guess, tried to damage a truck with a sledgehammer on stage. The Cybertruck withstood the blows, but one must ask Von to throw metal balls at the truck windows. It fell spectacularly. And if you didn't see it, there's a picture of it there. He basically took that steel ball after they did a few tests of it, dropping it on a window. He took it and chunked the same steel ball at the windows, and it broke. It didn't bust all the way through, but they still spiderweb shattered. And then they claimed that they were throwing rocks at, or throwing this ball at it before the presentation, and it probably got fractures in it. It's what caused it to inevitably break. But it says Tesla's credit, the balls didn't go all the way through the truck's armored glass, but certainly did shatter the windows. Didn't withstand a second test either. So the windows on the Tesla Cybertruck didn't fare as well under a beating, and he said, we'll fix it in a post. Surprised the picture's not on here. Must got rid of it. But you ought to see the Legos truck. It was like they just took a dark gray block, a light gray block, and put some white blocks on there and some little wheels. It's like a square chunk of just block. It's funny. I think the truck's pretty cool. I don't like the interior. I don't like the granite countertop. I think change the color of it. Elon, if you're ever listening. So this, I think, is crazy. And one thing I will say, I don't necessarily agree with Bernie Sanders or the whole socialism construct of the government that they want to induce into this country or whatever. But when it comes to this stuff, his ideology is on point. It says the California DMV is making $50 million a year selling drivers' personal information. This is what I fear. Like I've talked about in previous videos that I've done about the whole Real ID Act. And I think Oklahoma and Oregon were one of the last states to get this. And the reason we didn't want to submit to it is because we had concerns over data breaches or whatever. Well, this right here, and I'm pretty sure people in California, you guys correct me if you're wrong, but I'm pretty sure people in California have real IDs. Well, this article comes out that the California DMV is making $50 million a year on selling drivers' personal information. This is why I don't want to give my personal information to the DMV, whether it be my passport, social security, birth certificate, all that. I don't want to give it. It's why I don't like the infringement into, the NSA and all that bullcrap viewing my personal information, whether it's, bank statements into those emails. I don't like it because they do nefarious crap like this. They take it and they sell your personal information. So the article goes on. It says a document obtained by Motherboard shows how DMVs sell people's names, addresses, and other personal information to generate revenue. If you're using Facebook, your metadata is being sold. By the way, it says the California Department of Motor Vehicles is generating a revenue of $50 million a year through selling drivers' personal information, according to a DMV document obtained by Motherboard. The DMVs across the country are selling data that drivers are required to provide to the organization in order to obtain license. The information includes physical address, car registration information, which is bullcrap. California's sales come from a state which generally scrutinizes privacy to a higher degree than the rest of the country. Public Record Act's request, Motherboard asked California DMV to the total dollar amounts paid by commercial request of data for the past 6 years. The responsive document shows the total revenue in financial year 2013 and 14 as of $41,562,735,000 before steadily climbing to $52,048,236 in a financial year of 2017-2018, and I probably just read all those numbers wrong, but you can see them for yourself there. Says the document doesn't make the commercial requesters, but some specific companies appear frequently in Motherboard's earlier investigation that looked at DMVs across the country. They included Data Broker, LexisNexis, and consumer credit reporting agency Experian. Motherboard also found DMV sold information to private investigators, including those who were hired to find out if a spouse is cheating. It is unclear if the California DMV has recently sold data to these sorts of entities. In an email to Motherboard, the California DMV said that requesters may also include insurance companies, vehicle manufacturers, and prospective employers. Asked if the sale of this data was essential to DMV's, Marty Grinstein, public information officer at the California DMV, wrote that its sale furthers objectives related to highway and public safety, quote, including availability of insurance risk assessment, vehicle safety recalls, traffic studies, emissions research, background checks, and pre- and existing employment purposes. He goes on to say the DMV takes its obligation to protect personal information very seriously. Oh crap. Information is also released pursuant to legislative direction, which is meaning a warrant, whatever they may be, to say they need your address to find you. It says, and the DMV continues to review its release practices to ensure information is only released to authorized persons/entities and only for authorized purposes. The DMV also audits requesters to ensure proper audit logs are maintained and the employers are trained in the protection of DMV information, and anyone having access to this information sign a security document. So there's a little message here. It says, do you know anything else about data selling? We'd love to hear from you. Using a non-work phone or computer, you can contact Joseph Cox securely on Signal on 4420-8133-5190. Wicker on Joseph Cox. OTR chat on jfcox@jabber.ccc.de or email joseph.cox@vice.com. There's multiple other DMVs around the U.S. previously confirmed to Motherboard that they have cut off data access for some commercial requesters after they abused the data. One of the main pieces of legislation that governs the sale of DMV data stemmed from a case in California. Lawmakers introduced the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, or the DPPA, in 1994 after a private investigator hired by a stalker obtained the address of actress Rebecca Schaefer from the DMV. The stalker went on to kill Schaefer. The DPPA was designed to restrict access to DMV data, but included a wide array of exemptions, including for private investigators. After Motherboard's earlier investigation, senators and digital privacy experts criticized the sale of DMV data, and some said the law should be changed. Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders said DMV should not profit from such information. Well, no crap. But you're a socialist, so you want to profit off people who make hard-earned money anyway, so whatever, bro. So this is crap, and I talk a lot about PG&E and the crap that they're pulling on the consumers over in California, and then I made a statement that said maybe California, part of the Agenda 21/2030, whatever you want to call it, would be taking over the commodities in order to control its people. And not 2 days after I said that, well, it comes out in an article that the mayors want to take over the I guess privately owned or corporation of PG&E, and then redistribute the funds that were once given out to shareholders back into the infrastructure and then rebuild it. But I mean, yeah, do that. I don't trust the government. Obviously, they say to do this, that totally don't mean anything they say. So here's maps of it, but the article says nearly 20,000 PG&E customers lose power in Humboldt County during severe weather. I also warned that there was severe weather coming to California in an earlier video, that they were having some winter storms that I guess are uncommon in the area during this time of year. I warned about that, but this just adds to more of the chaos after the fires that they've had, which I covered all those. I streamed a lot of them. It's like I always say, like, regardless, I'm in Oklahoma and we're still praying for you guys in California. We're all human beings. I don't think it's fair what they're doing to you guys. I think that you guys need answers, and I don't think that your government is necessarily giving you the answers that you seek. I also think it's moronic that your governor wants to sue the current president over water that he is reserved for the farmers after he made his, he cut a bill with the farmers or whatever. He wants to sue him over water that's being given to the farmers when that could initially bring in more revenue into the state. But he's, griping about it because he wants to give that water to whatever damn reason. Probably to drink it in his ivory tower, for hell if I know. So this is at Humboldt County, California. It says nearly 20,000 PG&E customers are without power in Humboldt County during a winter storm Tuesday night. PG&E said 19,771 customers in Humboldt County were without power due to 168 separate outages caused by severe weather. It says there are some of the largest areas impacted by outages are Willow Creek, that's 1,400 customers. Trinidad is 1,450 customers. McCainville is 3,500 customers. Eureka, it is 2,550 customers. Sorry if I pronounced these names wrong on my viewers in California. Arcata, it's 3,396 customers. Blue Lake, just under 1,000 customers. Lollietta, 900, and Hoopa, 1,422 customers. It says PG&E was unable to set an estimate for restoration due to the number of outages and current conditions, but said crews will work on restoration as soon as it is safe to do so. As parts of Humboldt County lost PG&E power in the first major storm of the winter season on Tuesday. As of 4:45 p.m., PG&E said areas impacted by severe weather include the following. And you can read there if you are interested in watching. You can read this. Feel for you guys in California. That's some bullshit. This is customers in Manila, Fickle Hill, Jacoby Creek, Corbell, Big Lagoon, Oric, Berry Glen, Carletta, and Fortuna also lost power. There is no estimated restoration time for any of these outages, according to PG&E Slimeball asses. We have a plan for restoring to these outages, PG&E spokesperson Megan McFarland said. PG&E prepares ahead of severe storms by staging extra materials to perform repairs. Once the storm clears and it is safe for crews to make repairs, they will go out and work to restore the power. Hopefully, you guys get your crap together over there. And from what some people in California have told me personally through emails, comments, and messages, is that the governor there had paid for brush to be kicked up underneath some of the power lines, so when they spark and poof, like a match on gasoline. But that's alleged. I'm not saying it's true. Who knows? I've been in smaller towns where people do more corrupt things than just that. So if you're just ever tuning into this, I talk a lot about crypto. I talk just because I play with it. I haven't invested a whole bunch of money into it. I play with it kind of like the penny stocks. I play with the stocks kind of like the penny stocks, but I don't necessarily get into it. And pardon me, this is for you guys out there. So, it says crypto exchange Ubit confirms theft of $49 million in Ether or Ethereum. If you guys aren't familiar with cryptocurrency, I just report on this stuff. Like, I read the articles. So if you're kind of into it, then you can get a gist of what's going on. But it says South Korean crypto exchange Ubit has lost cryptocurrency worth $49 million. The exchange has confirmed. Ubit CEO said in a blog post at 9 UTC on Wednesday that an abnormal transaction from its wallets had been resulted in the outflow of 342,000 Ethereum earlier today. The exchange said the loss will be covered by its own assets. Meanwhile, withdrawals and deposits have already been suspended as a precaution. The firm estimated that it will take, quote, at least 2 weeks for services to be back to normal. According to a transaction tracking site, according to a transaction tracking site, while our whale alert, the lost ether worth 49 million at press time was sent from Ubit's wallet to an unknown Ethereum address starting with 0xA09871. You scandalous, man. About 4 UTC on Wednesday. About 30 minutes later, Ubit announced that it was temporarily suspended withdrawals and deposits, quote, due to server maintenance. In fact, more than $100 million worth of multiple cryptocurrencies have been sent out from Ubit today. However, the exchange said all other transactions apart from the abnormal Ethereum outflow were exchanged, moving cryptocurrencies from hot wallets to cold wallets to prevent further losses. Starting from around 5 UTC, 10 transactions, each of $1.51 million worth of Tron or TRX, as well as $3.5 million in BitTorrent or BTT, were further sent to unknown blockchain addresses, according to Whale Alert. After that, transactions of $8.7 million worth of Stellar XLM or $1.8 million of OMG, I guess it's OMSIGO. Never even heard of that one. $22 million to EOS and $3.4 million in Status or SNT were further transacted from Ubit's wallet to those of Bittrex Crypto Exchange. Ubit was initially launched as a partnership between Bittrex and South Korea app maker Donamu, which is backed by messaging giant Kakao. As I always say when I read these articles, is if you feel like you've been scammed, contact your wallet provider, contact whomever. As we get more dependent upon technology, this is just it's gonna become more relevant. Hackers will always find a flaw. It is what it is, guys. The only thing, anytime a man creates anything, there's flaws in it. It's not perfect. This article, it says Russian military launches secret surveillance satellite into orbit, which is crazy. I have more news that this is all yesterday's. So a lot of this, some people may have seen, may have not seen, but a lot of it's just articles that everyone ignores. Hence, this is news everyone ignores. You may have noticed this, but I have more news on Russia and their counterparts over in the Middle East and kind of the stuff that they're doing over there. But this, I think, is crazy. It says a Russian Soyuz rocket launched a top secret military satellite designed to scope out other satellites in space on Monday, November 25th, according to government reports. It says the Soyuz 2.1 volt launch vehicle brought the satellite into orbit from the Plesk Cosmodrome, which is roughly 500 miles or 800 kilometers north of Moscow, for the Russian Defense Ministry. And it says the ministry said in a statement, the launch took place at 12:52 p.m. Eastern, or 17:52 GMT, or 8:52 p.m. local time. It says in a quote, the spacecraft is launched into target orbit from which the state of domestic satellites can be monitored. The ministry added, the optical equipment of the spacecraft also allows you to take pictures of the Earth's surface. Zoom in this a little bit more. It says the spacecraft, whose name is not yet disclosed by the ministry or the Russian Federal Space Agency, says is also now under control of the space troops of the Aerospace Force. As of today, November 26th, it is functioning normal, the ministry said. This is the 5th time the Soyuz 2 launch vehicle launched in 2019 from Plesk I don't know. Roscosmos said their very own statement, which Space.com translated into English using the computer translation. Okay. It says this satellite is the next generation of rockets after the Soyuz-U, which underwent 435 launches from the same place, the Plesetsk, between 1973 and 2012. Roscosmos added, he said Russian authorities chose not to give notice of launch ahead of time, but they did issue airspace warning notices of, quote, drop zones for the rocket pieces as stages fell away from the launch, according to Spaceflight Now. Polar orbit, which allows over time the satellite to view practically the entire Earth over several orbits. Anyways, this is all part of, to me, what's going on with the whole military staging. And like I said, I'm going to get into a whole bunch of news today. It's going to have to do with military staging. Everybody's doing it. In the picture, in the thumbnail, this thumbnail, you see the jet fighters with the laser beams on it. And I talked about this in a video that I did, was Project Bluebeam and Agenda 21 secrets revealed, or Agenda 2030 secrets revealed, where, look, I say this, if they are boasting about technology they have now, they've had it. Now this is from this thumbnail you see is from an article that came out in, I think it was August. This article came out, but it's boasting about fighter jets with laser beams on it. I mean, we're fixing to go into like some Star Wars type crap. No plug intended for the new Star Wars movie that's coming out, but we're fixing to go into that type of stuff where, you know, you can just shoot through steel with these things, and these lasers have the capability to actually melt steel. There's articles all over the internet, and I could do a whole podcast or stream on the power of these laser beams, but this is all, I mean, all this satellite surveillance, the the staging in the Middle East, all this stuff that's going on is just part of whatever plans they have, upcoming plans they have in the future. This I thought was crazy, but the fertility rates here in the United States have hit a record low, and I thought that I would share this with you guys because I think it's important. Not as many people are having children as they were in previous years, but this article says the fertility rate in the United States hits a record low in 2018 after 4 consecutive years of decline, the New York Times reports. There were just over 59 births for every 1,000 women of childbearing age in the country last year, according to a newly released figures from the National Center for Health Statistics. That's down by 2% from the previous year and has fallen sharply by about 15% since 2007. Experts have long believed that fertility rates dropped off in difficult economic times, but rise again when economy recovers. However, the fertility rate hasn't risen since the recession in 2008, other than the brief uptick in 2014. The rate reportedly fell steeply among teenagers, down 7.4% from the years before, and teenagers' births have fallen by more than 70% since 1991. Yay for the teenagers who are going to do that, practicing safe sex, but good that they're not just out having babies like they had been. I think whenever I was in high school, was like everyone, girl that I went to high school with was having kids. So everybody's heard about this article. Explosion erupts at Texas chemical refinery. If you guys, this is posted in the comments, but apparently this was the first one. There was another one. You guys can look at this article if you want to, but this is it injured at least 3 people. But this is linked in the bottom. Everyone I'm sure probably knows about it. It was kind of breaking news when it occurred. So the whole port that Kim Jong-un was talking about he wanted to take order of over in South Korea. Well, it seems like they have militarized that port, and satellite images in this article actually show the militarization of this said port, and goes into that. It says North Korea is militarizing, I guess, a port that was once the destination of South Korean tourists traveling to the North Mount Kumgang Resort, according to a press report. It says new military facilities can be seen at the North Korean port of Zhangjiang, a former stopover for South Koreans, Seoul Economic Daily reported on Wednesday. Satellite imagery analysis also indicates an increase in number of warships in the port. Zhangjiang was used as a military base before 1998, when the North Korean permitted South Korean tourists and investments at the port, an entry point to Mount Kumgang. South Koreans were also allowed to visit the region until 2008, when South Korean tourists was fatally shot by North Korean guards. This is on Wednesday. South Korea Unification Ministry spokesman Lee Sang-min said the government is, quote, keeping an eye on the situation in close cooperation and consultation with partners. North Korea recently returned to military hostilities at the border. As on Monday, the regime said its army engaged in practice firing of artillery near disputed maritime border with the South. South Korean Defense Minister Jong Kyong-do told the Parliamentary Judiciary Committee on Wednesday the South Korean military is, quote, managing the situation in order to prevent the North from, quote, crossing a line. It says Jong said the denuclearization of North Korea is the most important task, while South Korea and the United States maintain, quote, solid military preparedness and a combined defense posture, according to the report. The defense minister also said the artillery was likely fired on Saturday between 10:30 and 10:40 a.m. local time, when, quote, minor sound waves were detected. North Korea's first foreign minister, Chow Son-hui, recently met with Russian diplomats in Moscow. Following the meeting, the Russian foreign minister briefed the U.S. Special Envoy on North Korea, Stephen Wynn, about the meeting, according to Yohap on Wednesday. I have an article on them popping off rockets as of yesterday. I guess they shot off some more. They're testing more rockets over in K. I mean, I don't know how good the rapport is with Trump and Rocket Man over there, but all this stuff's just piss and match to me. Someone might be stupid enough to push a button, but to me, it's just, want to show you our military power, and it's just gives a crap, man, honestly. So this is crazy. Virginia of all places, and Virginia's one of the most southern states. If you ever get Virginia and Georgia, they're even more southern than we are here in Oklahoma. But this is what's crazy. Sweeping VA gun ban, likely confiscation without grandfather clause proposed by state legislature. You must have let a liberal Democrat in there, and they're screwing with your firearm laws. That'd be the only reason why. I don't even see, like people from the South are not they're not as high strung as people around the world, unless they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, drugs or whatever. But we're pretty laid back people. We like front porch sitting, drinking beer, hanging out with our family. It's just that's what we do in the South. We're not like some crazy loons that get firearms and then we're just gonna run around. We're the last people you want to take firearms from. We protect our families, our friends, everything. So for this, like, you guys are just probably voted in the wrong person. But I mean, that group of people, my opinion, well, it's not my opinion, it's a fact, just kind of steeping into every conservative state everywhere in order to sway votes. But anyways, it says Virginia lawmakers are now considering a state law banning the ownership of certain semi-automatic guns deemed, quote, assault firearms. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You can deem a firearm an assault firearm, but I can assault you with this, I can assault you with this, I can assault you with this, I can assault you with anything. It's the action. Just because it's a firearm, or it's an AR, it's an arm light, doesn't mean assault rifle. I can throw this at you and it's an assault. I can throw this mouse at you, it's an assault. I can throw this candle at you, that's an assault. It's the action. It's the mental anguish or whatever drives these people to actually, assault people. Usually it's not, law-abiding citizens that go out and do this heinous crap, but irregardless. Virginia State Senator Richard Sasslaw introduced State Bill 16, which would expand the definition of, quote, an assault firearm to cover many different semi-automatic rifles and pistols. It's ridiculous. So the bill would call for the ban of such firearms, barring people from purchasing, possessing, selling, or transferring those weapons. Among the changes in firearm definitions, the bill would expand the term, quote, assault firearm to include semi-automatic centerfire rifles and pistols with fixed magazine capacity greater than 10 rounds. It's dumb. It's dumb. So the bill will also ban semi-automatic rifles and pistols with detachable magazines that also have folding and telescoping stocks, barrel shrouds, and thumbhole grips and second-hand grips. Rifles under the new bill would not be allowed pistol grips, bayonet mounts. I don't even think bayonet mounts are legal. I think that bayonet mounts are actually illegal. I don't think you can have a stabby weapon on the end of your weapon. It says grenade or flare launchers, which I don't even think you can have those. Silencers, which you can have those, but you better expect a visit from a federal agency if you purchase one. Muzzle brakes and flash suppressors. It said Virginians would not be allowed pistols that accept a magazine into the weapon at any other point than the pistol grip. So you can't have one. If you have a rifle that the clip goes in underneath the, the receiver or the barrel, it would have to be in the actual hand grip. So no more 22 caliber bolt actions that have 3-round clip that goes in underneath the receiver. I guess those are going to be illegal now. It's just like stupid. This is stupid. Aside from that fact, people, criminals, whatever, are going to find any way possible to get a firearm. You're going to take them away from law-abiding citizens, and you're going to allow the criminals just to rob, rape, pillage, and do whatever they want to with their illegal acquired firearms. That's okay. We're not even going to get into the Fast and the Furious thing that has to do with Eric Holder and the Obama administration, where they got illegal. They acquired firearms and then sold them, and then they were used for illegal activities. I'm not even going to get into that, but it's okay if the government does it. Don't worry. We just want to screw the people. That's where we're at right now. It says Virginians would not be allowed pistols that accept magazines to the weapon at any other point than the pistol grip. Pistols would also have an unloaded weight limit of 50 ounces. Dumb. So the bill would also limit shotguns to magazine capacity of no more than 7 shells. I think if you take a cork out, it's 5. Unless you get an AA-12 or a modified shotgun, you're not getting more than that in there. Pretty sure if you take the cork and spring, if you take the cork out, you're only holding 5 to 7, depending on the gun. But anyways, the provisions of this act may result in the net increase in periods of imprisonment or commitment. Says the bill says indicating increased imprisonments as likely outcomes of this passage. Senators Law did not respond to multiple requests for comment by American Military News. In reaction to the newly proposed bill, the National Rifle Association of the NRA Institute for Legislation Act reported the bill would ban many commonly owned firearms like the AR-15. The NRA-ILA also noted the bill does not grandfather in existing owners of the firearms described. Current owners would reportedly have to give up their banned firearms or face felony conviction. The gun advocacy group described the legislation as, quote, clearly designed to be firearms confiscation. Exactly what it is. It says along the specific items listed in the ban, the law also prohibits any characteristic of like kind. It says the gun advocacy group described the, quote, like kind language as unacceptable vagueness that would burden gun owners with guessing how courts may interpret the provision and potentially judge components on their firearms. Violations of the law would constitute a Class 6 felony, according to Virginia law. Such felonies may be punishable up to 5 years in jail. The NRA-ILA suggests the legislation is a result of former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg's heavy financial involvement in recent Virginia state elections. Bloomberg, who has officially confirmed his bid for the U.S. president on Sunday, I did a video on that, has listed gun control as a key component of his campaign platform. Of course. They want to take your guns. Says Bloomberg's Everytown for Gun Safety Advocacy Group spent $2.5 million in the election, according to CNBC. The gun advocacy group greatly outspent the NRA's own $300,000 it threw into the race. The spending may have played a key role in Democratic winning control over legislature for the first time since 1994. The Democratic control of both the Virginia House and Senate, along with Governor Ralph Northam, may raise the likelihood the bill will pass. In a statement by Everytown for Gun Safety following the Virginia elections, the organization touted 15 of its endorsed candidates won in the state. Everytown for Gun Safety and Virginia chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. A part of Everytown Today celebrated the victory of 15 endorsed candidates in Virginia. The candidates were running in key districts against gun lobbying-backed candidates in the NRA's home state, the November 7th statement read. Well, you tried to come down here, and you brought your Cory Bookers down here. We have a little democratic socialist organization down here in Oklahoma, and they tried to take the guns from the Oklahomans. Well, guess what? As of November the 1st, you could carry a firearm if you aren't a convicted felon, if you don't have warrants, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can carry a firearm in the great state of Oklahoma. And you're not going to take our guns from us. Here, at least. You guys just need to stay out of people's business. But you just wait till a foreign country decides to, bring their arse over here and try to confiscate guns and obliterate this country. And once you take those firearms, you're not going to have any law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. You're going to have criminals that have the firearms. You're not going to have any law-abiding citizens to defend themselves in this country. That's what it boils down to. That was put in our Constitution against a tyrannical government and to protect ourselves against both, and even if you're not in the military, terrorists, both foreign and domestic. So if they come here, okay, we're citizens of this country. We have the right to defend this country. If someone is a domestic terrorist and they go into a place like they do all the time in the majority of gun safe zones, and we decide that we want to protect ourselves against that, then that's a domestic terrorist, and we have every right to defend ourselves, our children, our spouses, our homes, our properties. I've exercised that right. I've exercised my Second Amendment right. I've shot a home intruder. Old brother shot and killed a home intruder. So, with that being said, in this state, it's not going to happen here. Not going to happen. I bet Texas is kicking themselves in the ass right now for becoming part of this place. Anyways, Russia or China's worst fear, a picture F-13, but with lasers. So this is what was in the thumbnail. I just found that cool picture of them going underneath the bridge. I kind of edited it that way, but I thought this is crazy, and this is the type of sci-fi stuff that we're headed towards. I mean, they already have. I'm not even gonna be able to properly think of the name right now, but basically a shield, and it shines a beam on you, and it feels like it's burning your flesh. Well, these lasers actually, and a bunch of articles come out. These lasers actually burn through steel, through metal. And now they want to equip our aircraft with them. And if you haven't seen the picture that I posted on my Twitter and my Instagram and my Facebook page, they, oh, right on. Yes, definitely support each other. I'm not paying much attention to the chat, but somebody, Zoe said support each other. We're definitely, and he's from being on D Live, where it's tuned in there. We should definitely support each other. I mean, that's all we are as humans, man. Despite race, religion, religious preference, or political affiliation, we're human beings at the end of the day. The whole two-party system, religious division, all of that is part of dividing each other. So. This article's Russian or China's worst fear, picture the F-35, but with lasers. It says, a key point, in theory, the jet would be able to burn straight through his opponent's It says fighter jet laser weapons are on fast track, expected to bring air attack options to burn, quote, burn holes through enemy targets at the speed of light. Not only are laser weapons fast, precise, and low weight and drag, but they will also be more stealthy, quiet attack advantages against our air and ground targets, among other things. This is well known, and ground testing of several programs are already underway with Air Force Research Lab, the Office of Naval Research, and numerous service entities involved in ground testing and ultimately flying the weapons. It says, meanwhile, the Navy is concurrently developing a laser application for its Marine Corps' F-35B, intended to effectively maintain the stealth fighter for future decades of war. Recognizing the aircraft is, one might say, in its operational infancy and expected to fight until at least 2070. It says the Marine Corps' F-35 variant was the first of 3 to enter service. Also, maybe the existing F-35Bs have certainly been flying long enough to benefit from sustainment efforts. The laser application called, quote, laser shock peening strengthens and preserves the aircraft's smooth, stealthy exterior and composite metal materials. A Navy report describes laser shock peening as a unique process producing a uniform result across the surface treated. In laser shock peening, the surface of media in first coat, with an ablative layer and covered with a water tamping layer. A high energy laser beam is fired at the metal, which creates an area of plasma on the metal surface. The impact creates a shock wave, which travels through the metal, and compressive residual stresses remain. It says the compression helps improve the metal's damage tolerance, fatigue, life, and strength, as written in Navy News report published in Navy.mil. With technology verification, the industry preparations already underway. It says the laser shock peening will formally begin next year at a new F-35 depot facility now being finalized. The 16,000 square foot facility comprises 2 bays where the actual laser shock peening process will take place, and connected area with house and laser generator, Crisp added in the Navy report. Laser peening will replace the legacy approach called shock peening, which sprays solid materials such as glass beads over metals in a kind of sandblast fashion, Crisp explained. Shock peening, you just randomly throw it at the surface and it creates these surface dimples. What you get is a very inconsistent surface profile because it is controlled. Matthew Crisp, the F-35 Joint Program Office Site Lead at FRCE, or the Fleet Readiness Center East, said, So the new process, by contrast, will strengthen the design without adding metal or weight, and this is of great significance because, among other things, the F-35 is built with a special blend of composite materials to minimize weight and drag while ensuring the curved radar-absorbent stealth exterior is maintained. Such as process is naturally of greatest importance when it comes to flying with weapons lodged in internal weapons bay as not an exposed contours and shapes potentially vulnerable to enemy radar detection. So if you guys want to look more into this, it's interesting, but yeah, this is where we're headed to. We're definitely going to get more of the feel for, I guess, definitely gonna get more for the feel for laser warfare, I suppose. I'm gonna step out for a second, go to the restroom, but I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. You guys ever seen that movie League of Their Own? That was definitely a Tom Hanks "We." Okay, so I talked a lot about I think I had an article in the video prior to this where it talked about Turkey wanting to test their S-400 system they bought from Russia. My cat is fat and laying on his back right here. They want to test their S-400 system they bought from Russia in like 2016, 2017, something like that. Well, this article says Turkey's not backing down in NATO defense plans. I have another article. Well, no, I think this may be it. But they went through and they tested it. And I think they used American F-35s in order to test their missile defense system, their S-400 ground-to-earth defense system. So this is out of Ankara. It says Ankara will resist efforts by NATO, by its NATO allies to persuade it to back an alliance defense plan for the Baltics and Poland until its demands are met over a plan for Turkey's defense, a Turkey diplomatic source said on Wednesday. Said Reuters reported on Tuesday that Turkey was refusing to back the plan for the Baltics and Poland unless it got more political support for its fight against the Kurdish YPG militia in northern Syria. And I've told you they're doing this in Syria in order to open trade routes, so pay attention. Turkey wants NATO to formally recognize the YPG militia, the main component of the U.S.-backed Syria Democratic Forces, or SDF, as terrorist, and infuriated that its allies have given the militia support. The Turkish source said NATO had agreed this year to back the alliance plan for defense of Turkey, including the event of an attack from the south, where it borders Syria. The plan included recognizing the YPG terrorist threat to Turkey, but Washington later withdrew its support and other countries then opposed to it, the source added. So we are saying that if our defense plan isn't published, we won't allow the other plan. Let me see if I can zoom in. For the Baltics and Poland to be published either. The source said, those who want us to publish the plan for the Baltics must then show the same awareness for ours as well. Presidential spokesperson Abraham Kalin said on Twitter on Wednesday that the European Union and NATO must cooperate with Turkey regarding the country's national security concerns. Turkey is a strong member of NATO with the second largest army in it and wants to join the EU as a full member, he said. But the allies must take threats against Turkey's national security seriously and work in partnership to overcome them. Said a week before NATO's summit in London, alliance envoys are seeking formal approval of 29 members of the military plan to defend Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia in event of a Russian attack. Asked about the issue, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg declined to give details of the internal discussion, but said, quote, "We have plans in place to defend and protect all allies and our commitment to a collective defense in ironclad." He also said, in a quote, "Not only do we have plans, but we have more ready forces and modernized command structures and more capable than we have had for decades." It says the start of a Turkey offensive in northern Syria last month was condemned by its NATO allies who fear it could hinder the battle against the Islamic State. And Turkey has rejected the concerns, saying it will continue to battle all terrorists in the region, which it says includes the U.S.-backed YPG. Turkish source said Stoltenberg was trying to find common ground between the member states on the defense plan for Turkey, and that Ankara has, quote, is open for offers. So I told you guys, I said, he's threatening testing these things, and why wouldn't he? I think he had a visit with the president last week, maybe. To me, all this is just confusing. Like, he visits our president, then they do this stuff, and then we back the rebels that don't like them, and then it's just like total mind warp. What's going on? It's kind of hard to follow everything that's going on. I think we're in bed with so many people, it's just like a backstab and a backstab and a backstab, and everyone's just like stabbing each other in the back in like a circular backstab. I don't know what's going on. Developing a one world government. So, I thought this was interesting because this is, like I said, all these dudes are players over there in the Middle East, but then you got all these articles coming out like U.S. accuses Russia of helping Syria cover up chemical weapons use. This is out of Amsterdam. It says the United States on Thursday accused Russia of helping Syria conceal the use of banned toxic munitions in the civil war by undermining the work of Global Chemical Weapon Agency trying to identify those responsible. This is a commitment by the U.S. representative to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or the OPCW, Kenneth Ward, drew a rapid denial from Moscow and came as Western powers and Russia clashed at the agency's annual conference in The Hague, whatever. You guys can read that word there if you're watching this. Said Moscow has for months cited dissent by two other former OPCW employees who leaked a document and an email as evidence that the OPCW doctored the conclusions of a March 1 report, which found that a toxic chemical containing chlorine was used in a 2018 attack near Damascus. Said more than 40 people were killed in the attack on Doma, a town on the outskirts of the capital, then held by rebels on April 7, 2018. The United States, Britain, and France retaliated a week later by firing missiles at Syrian government targets. It says the biggest Western military action against Damascus authorities of the 8-year-old war. Syria and Russia deny that there ever was a chemical attack on Doma, saying the event was staged using bodies brought from elsewhere and that the OPCW's report on Doma was doctored to justify Western military intervention. Who knows? I know a lot of that stuff goes on. Anyways, let's continue. The OPCW has become the battleground for a diplomatic clash on Syria after Russia in 2017 vetoed a resolution to extend the mandate of the UN OPCW Joint Investigative Mechanism, JIM, which concluded in a series of reports that the Syrian military used both nerve agent sarin and chlorine as weapons. The OPCW's own legislative and identification team, the IIT, which was established by a clear majority vote by its member states in June of 2018, is looking into who was responsible for the dome attacks among several other incidents. Its first report is expected next year. Russian ambassador to the OPCW, Alexander Shugin, repeated objectives to the creation of the ITT, saying it was illegal and politicized. Syrian representative to the OPCW on Thursday vowed not to cooperate with the IIT's investigations. Ward said Russia and Syria were merely seeking to cover up the use of chemical weapons by undermining the OPCW. Said, quote, unfortunately, the Russian Federation has played a central role in the cover-up, he told delegates. He also said Russia and Syria may sit with us here, but they stand apart from us in a fundamental way, and they continue to embrace, quote, chemical weapons. Sullivan rejected the U.S. claim that Russia was helping Syria cover up chemical crimes carried out by the Syrian regime. He was said, in a quote, it is exquisite rhetoric, but these assertions do not hold water. We disagree. Whether you do this or you don't do this, probably, I would assume, some nefarious things are going on over there. Seems to be the going thing for every country. Let's just do some, let's send Central Intelligence Agency operatives over in Tehran. Let's just do this. Let's gas these people. It's all in order to start, wars or over dramatized situations. Just demonstrated that the engine is capable of flying faster than Mach 3, according to Defense News. However's unique feature is a pre-cooler which reduces the temperature of incoming compressed air, explains British defense site forces.com. And quote, this means the engine does not need to cope with extreme temperatures, which requires special materials. At high altitudes, it is a rocket, but at lower altitudes, it works like a jet engine, sucking in and compressing air. One option the RAF is considering for development of hypersonic engines is a add pre-cooler technology to the EJ-200 gas turbine engine that currently powers the Typhoon. Alas, that isn't the same as sticking a hypersonic engine on an older fighter. You shouldn't read into You shouldn't read into that. We are somehow going to achieve hypersonic typhoon, said Air Chief Marshal Stephen Hyler. There is more to developing hypersonic aircraft than sticking a new engine in an old airframe. Says to turn a 4th or 5th generation aircraft such as the F-16 or F-35 would invoke a variety of airframe, aerodynamic, and avionics issues. Instead, Britain's new $10 million or $12.2 million hypersonics program will be used to thrust Britain into the hypersonic race that is currently dominated by the US, Russia, and China. For example, hypersonic research is expected to bear fruit in engine development for the Tempest, Britain's planned 6th generation fighter. With 80% of Western fighters expected to be 4th generation for the foreseeable future, hypersonic missiles are a way to keep older jets relevant. We are working with some people to see whether we can generate a Mach 5 capability in 4 years, said Air Vice Marshal Simon Rochelle, Chief of Air Staff Capability. He also said there will be others pursuing higher and faster speeds, but much beyond that speed, you start to change the chemical properties, the physical properties, and metallic properties within actual weapon system. Part of the reason for rapidly developing high-speed weapons was to enable those aircrafts to maintain their edge, Rochelle said. There's a challenge and competition now growing at range, at speed, at pace, and we have to mobilize ourselves to be ready to take that on. In other words, hypersonic engines won't turn a Typhoon F-15 or F-22 into a Mach 5 jet. Instead, hypersonic missiles will do that work. It's the same approach that allows 60-year-old B-52s to remain formidable weapons by arming them with smart bombs. The platform remains the same, but the payload is updated as technology advances. I think I may have the article here, but I think Russia has hypersonic missiles. Probably so. You can hear that. Pull this up. Like I said, while it's doing its thing, you guys want to call in, number scroll at the bottom of your screen, 1-408-638-0968, and then enter the meeting ID 534-233-4758. And if you want to chat, you can also chat. I'm not paying much attention to it now. Nobody's really talking. This says Trump versus Iran in war. What would this legendary Yale professor say? So, hold on a second. It says, still situations rhyme between ages. While principles endure. It says ideas from the strategic can retain their power to help posterity make sense of today's controversies. Case in point, Iran is much in the headlines as of late. What would the legendary geopolitics scholar, Yale professor Nicholas Spikeman say about the sputtering confrontation between the United States and Iran? He would have plenty to say about the feud. First and foremost, that Washington should continue trying to blunt Iranian ambitions, not for him the passive approach. He would not. He was no proponent of, quote, offshore balancing. And it says the conceit that America should stay mostly aloof from foreign entanglements, sending armadas and armies across the broad main only if inhabitants of the Far East or Western Europe proved unable to withstand a domineering power, an Emperor Japan, a Nazi Germany, or a Soviet Union on their own. Excuse me. Weigman faulted administrations for both political parties for remaining diplomatically and militarily quiescent during the interwar years, and says they allowed dangers to fester and through neglect compelled the United States to fight Second World War decades after the First. He found this unacceptable. Weigman harbored little desire to go abroad in search of monsters to slay. He wanted to go abroad to confine monsters to their lairs. Or, better yet, he believed proactive U.S. involvement would keep predators from gestating in the first place. Acting early and forcefully would prevent would-be hegemons from conquering the remnants of Western Europe and East Asia. They would find hard to lash out their Americas across the Atlantic and Pacific without resources from those rich regions. It says no brute would need slaying if the United States made common cause with its opponents of aggression ahead of time. In other words, Weigman was an onshore balancer, but does his forward strategy apply to the Persian Gulf region today? For it to do so, the Islamic Republic must be a Middle Eastern counterpart to Germany, Japan, and the Soviet Union, a powerhouse driven to unite the Gulf region to South Asia rimland under its yoke, harvest the resources it acquired to build the Marshall Might, and hence constitute a menace to the New World. Yet Iran falls woefully short of homogenic status. And it says Iranians certainly long for the glory days when the Persian Empire bestrode the new Middle East and South Asia, in a time even threatened to bring Europe under the great king's serenity. Contemporary Iran is no Persia. It lacks economic and military resources for enterprises such sweep, and without overbearing power, it stands little chance of overawing others into bandwagoning with Tehran and doing the mullahs. If you guys know who the mullahs are, you need to look them up. The mullahs bidding. They're the 12ers. They basically believe when the 12th Imam arrives, this is the whole world, and they believe that, drenching the world in the bloods, the dissidents are going to bring forth what we would call the Antichrist, equal the 12th Imam. Those are the mullahs, or the 12ers. They're like a secret society. So they are basically they are ahead of, they're over what happens in the Middle East. Every terrorist sect or whatever you can think of over in the Middle East, they pretty much oversee all that. They're outside of accountability to Iran or any of those Middle Eastern countries that we deal with. They're way outside of that. So if you're interested, just look into the mullahs. I don't necessarily like talking about them just by themselves. It's like, conjuring the devil, pretty much. They're pretty wicked dudes. But if you're interested, just type in that word. Go to your Google and type in this word. Mullahs. Mullahs. Just type it in. It'll take you down a rabbit hole of who those dudes are. They're dangerous. Probably not as dangerous as Mossad, but they're pretty dangerous. Okay, so it says, in other words, the prospects for an imperial Iran appear dim. To survey the region through Iranian eyes to the west, us be the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC countries. None of these Sunni Arab states could stand up to Iran in a one-on-one scrap. Collectively, though, the field serious military power funded by oil wealth that, unlike Iran, is encumbered by economic sanctions, the GCC promises to remain a formidable contender so long as the members stand together. It says even all sanctions disappear today, it would take the Islamic Republic decades to rejuvenate the economy, amassing national wealth and transmitting it into military prowess and diplomatic clout sufficient to coerce this standing Arab coalition. Tehran's capacity to steamroller the Gulf region or intimidate the GCC states into submission seems doubtful. To Iran's northeast lies Central Asia, while to southeast lie Pakistan and India. Says Afghanistan and its neighboring are strategically inert at best. If Tehran's covets and alliance with them lets cheer it on, such allies would be dead weight rather than an asset to Iranian strategy. Pakistan fronts at the Arabian Sea along the approaches of the Strait of Hormuz and boasts a nuclear arsenal. Geography and the military factor make it more viable partner for Iran. Still, that's pretty weak adhesive to cement all alliances between Shia and Iran and Sunni Pakistan. Anyways, this is long. I don't really want to read it all, but you guys can look that up in the deal there. I want to bring up, like, as far as control goes over everything there, look up the mullahs, then along, with the mullahs and the other agency over there, you're gonna discover real quick who runs all that. This I think is nuts. So it says Oklahoma cop indicted for murder after allegedly firing 60 rounds, killing road rage suspect. This is an Oklahoma police officer was indicted last week for murder after he allegedly fired nearly 60 rounds at a road rage suspect earlier this year. John Mitchell, a 40-year-old lieutenant with the Blackwell Police Department, was charged with second-degree murder in the death of Michael Angadzi, 34. It says Michael Angadzi on 34 on May 20th. It's conflicting. I don't know if they screwed up on the story or not, but it says Mitchell engaged in imminently dangerous conduct when he shot Godzi in Blackwell, located roughly 90 miles north of Oklahoma City. In Oklahoma City, a grand jury concluded last Thursday, alleging the officer wasn't justified in firing dozens of shots at the suspect. You guys could be the judge of this, because I believe from reading this article, he was more within his right to neutralize the suspect. Authorities have responded to reports of gunfire coming under a white pickup truck at various locations in Blackwell when the incident broke out, the Oklahoma reported. The responding officers reportedly pursued Godsey's pickup truck and exchanged gunfire with her. That's what I'm saying. It says Michael and Godsey. I'm thinking they meant Michelle, but not sure. So, said responding officers reportedly pursued Godsey's pickup truck and exchanged gunfire with her before her truck came to a stop. Godsey was found dead and alone in the driver's seat of the truck, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation said. Mitchell's defense attorney, Gary James, argued the 40-year-old police officer acted lawfully to stop a threat. James said it was, quote, a sad day for law enforcement and society, and described Godsey as a, quote, violent fleeing felon. She shot at the police twice. She has shot at her mother twice. She has shot at a private citizen, and we know she fired other rounds around town, James said. Mitchell gets in behind her. He took his AR-15 and he started shooting through the front windshield at her. James said Mitchell was cleared by an independent internal affairs review of the shooting. Mitchell faces at least 10 years in prison if convicted. I look at it this way. You're going around shooting people, and then you're on the run after you've already shot people. In their minds, and I'm not a police officer, you're already dangerous. You obviously have a firearm. You obviously have done some crimes that you probably want to get away with. So by any means, you're going to go through and you're going to try to defend yourself to the fullest to try to get away from the police officers. If this officer fired his AR-15 in order to stop you from being reckless or shooting other civilians or other family members, I believe he's well within his means. If he was cleared by an independent internal affairs review board, so be it. I mean, he did his job. I don't think that he should be facing 10 years in prison. Not all police officers are bad. If you are a convicted felon and you're running around with a firearm, for one, that's already, convicted felon in possession of a firearm is already a felony. You're already looking at time for that. And then you go off and you start just shooting random people, shoot your mother twice, and then you're driving recklessly all over the street. This officer is approaching you knowing you're armed, and then he's defending. His obligation is not only to defend himself and go home to his family. His obligation is to defend the citizens of the community that they live in. And if you're being a freaking, nutcase driving around acting like a damn fool, you ask for it. I mean, you ask for it. I don't think he should be tried. I don't think he should go to jail. That's my personal opinion. I think he was doing his job. Let him do his job. If Internal Affairs found the guy not guilty, he's probably not guilty. So you should probably just leave it at that. This I thought is interesting. I don't know if a lot of you guys saw this, but there's an article that came out about birds or a weather balloon or something flew over the White House airspace, and they scrambled jets, Secret Service, all this stuff to see what it was, and they say that it was like a flock of birds or a weather balloon or whatever the hell they say it was. Who knows? Well, it comes out during all this stuff happening that some people had spotted this ominous missile defense system that was perched on a building across the street from the White House. Pretty rad because, I mean, I've never been there, but they obviously have the power to defend. So this article says mystery missile system sighted during White House lockdown. It said amid short-lived scare with the White House and the U.S. Capitol building on temporary lockdown on Tuesday, a journalist covering the White House added to the drama by tweeting an image of a missile battery on the roof of an adjacent building. Secret Service attributed to the lockdown to an apparent airspace violation, which turned out to be a flock of birds. Now, in another article that I read, they said that it was a craft because they're all feeding into this aliens and UFOs and all this crap. They said it was an aircraft, and when they scrambled jets, those jets tried to keep up with whatever this aircraft was and were unable to catch it. That's could have just been a conspiracy website or whatever, but who knows? It could have happened. So it says this is a picture of it, so you can check the picture out there. This I guess is from an apparent building adjacent from the White House, but you can see the missile defense system there with its antennas coming out. It says the sight should not come as surprise to anyone familiar with the military presence in the nation's capital. The missile was a part of an air defense system put into place many years ago, and there are several types of anti-aircraft munitions dispersed through the city, the majority of them located in and around the Capitol. There's some of our military service members and a ground-to-air missile defense system. It says, at first glance, the missile turret does appear to be new and imposing, but it's just a portion of the AN-TWQ-1 Avenger system. The system, which is usually mounted on a Humvee, can be placed in a variety of positions. It says it is armed with 2 4-round launchers from the FIM-92 Stinger missile and a 50 caliber M3P machine gun. According to a report by Defense Blog, there were no aircraft spotted in the area, and a radar signature might actually have been a flock of birds. Aside from the weaponry stationed in close proximity to the Capitol area, there are hundreds of other systems in place for defense attacks, including entire fighter wing dedicated to Capitol defense. I thought that was neat. Oh yeah, so I read the other one. I mentioned that I read an article that said that Turkey was going to test their S-400 missile defense system against, I guess, F-16s, and that the U.S. was kind of saying this was in defiance to whatever they asked them to do or whatever. Well, apparently Turkey used American F-16s to test Russian air defenses in defiance to U.S. demands. So they did test them. I said, I kept saying, well, why wouldn't he? Well, he did. And this article talks about that. It says, in an in-your-face rebuke to the United States, Turkey has announced that it is using American-made F-16 fighter jets to test the Russian S-400 anti-aircraft missiles that it bought from Moscow in defiance of the U.S. demands, and that is not activate the system. Okay. The dispute resulted in the Pentagon banning Turkey from buying and helping to build the Lockheed Martin F-35 fighter jet. Ostensibly, the two NATO allies are trying to forge an agreement that would allow Turkey to rejoin the F-35 program. So far, Turkey shows no sign that it is willing to give up the Russian system, which has already bought, paid for, accepted delivery of, and is now testing. The U.S. as operating the Russian system alongside the F-35 will compromise the fifth-generation fighter jet's stealthy flight profile. Local Turkish media showed video of the Boeing F-16 jets flying over the Turkish capital in what was announced as a test of the S-400 system in defiance of U.S. demands that the NATO ally not activate the anti-aircraft missiles. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Tuesday at a briefing for reporters, "We have made it very clear to Turkish government our desire to see them move away from putting into full oh my God, I can't even read right now. Operationalization of the S-400 weapon system." Jesus. It says, meanwhile, a spokesman for Turkey's President Erdogan promised that Turkey would not integrate Russian S-400 missile system into NATO security or air defense systems and instead operate it as a standalone platform, according to state-run and Dula agency. He said, we believe that the S-400 will not pose any threat to the F-35 program. We do not want the F-35 program to be jeopardized by anything, said a presidential spokesman, Ibrahim Kalin, and Forum in Belgium. We will be talking about this next week at NATO summit. We believe that those concerns can be addressed, he said. I've been mandated to follow this with my U.S. counterpart Robert O'Brien. We were hopeful, said Pompeo. We are still talking to the Turks, and we are still trying to figure out our way through this thing. I told you he would do it, and he did it. Because why wouldn't he do it? It says in this article, it says U.S. Marines and U.S. Army soon to be Navy killers. U.S. Army soldiers and U.S. Marines need to become ship killers, one Marine Corps lieutenant argued. U.S. Army soldiers and U.S. Marines need to become ship killers, one Marine Corps lieutenant argued. With the Chinese and Russian fleets fielding more and better ships and missiles than the U.S. Navy struggling to grow its own fleet, it's time for American-grown troops to contribute to naval battles, First Lieutenant Walker Mills argued in Proceedings, the professional journal of the U.S. Naval Institute. It says both the Marine Corps and the Army need to rapidly develop and deploy redundant land-based capabilities to strike ships in the littoral, as well as concepts for employment, Mills wrote. The Army and Marines clearly agree with Mills' assessment. There's a ground component for the maritime fight, General Robert Neller, the outgoing Marine Corps commandant, said at February 2019 conference in San Diego. We're a naval force and naval campaign, Neller said. You have to help the ships control sea space, and you can do that from the land. Marine and Army units with anti-ship missiles could spread out across islands in order to control strategic ocean checkpoints. So there's a lot of geographical checkpoints, and you know that they are what they are, and potential adversaries know what they are, Neller said. So if you get there first and you can control that space, then you have an operational advantage. The hardware slowly is coming. Both the Army and Marines in recent years have experimented with ground-launch anti-ship missiles. And the Army in 2018 war game in Hawaii fired a truck-mounted naval strike missile at a target vessel. During the same event, an Army Hermes battery struck a decommissioned U.S. Navy amphibious ship, racing with 5 unguided 227mm diameter rockets. An aerial drone provided the coordinates for the 50-mile strike. The Marines are buying a smaller number of 900-round NSMs to go with their wheeled high-mobility artillery rocket system launchers. Fighter jets could help the Marine missile batteries to locate targets. In 2018 demonstration in Arizona, an F-35 stealth fighter detected a test target and transmitted the target's location to HIMARS battery. But the U.S. ground combat branches are far behind U.S. adversaries as well as allies and land-based anti-ship fires, Mills warned. So it says initially organized with 5-inch naval guns, these battalions saw action almost everywhere in the Pacific, but proved most critical in early defensive actions such as Battle of Wake Island. In an instance, Marine gunners sank Japanese destroyer and the first Japanese ship sunk by U.S. forces during the war. They managed to hold off an invasion for 15 days as the war progressed. However, the battalions increasingly shift towards the anti-aircraft role. A modern version of these forces could operate HIMARS launch with various capable anti-ship missiles, and the benefits to U.S. maritime strategy would be immediate, Mills claimed. If you guys want to read more about this article, it's in the link's in the description, and you guys could check more of it out there. So this, and I'm sure everybody's talked about it, I'm going to just go ahead and skip through these last two. China fears after our President Trump signs Hong Kong legislation. You guys can read this. Basically what this article is trying to say is that it's probably going to cause some beef between Trump and Chinese president, and that trade deal that Trump's been working for so long is probably going to cause even longer stalemate between that. And then also North Korea has fired 2 short-range projectiles, which, I mean, why wouldn't he? Like, honestly, why wouldn't he? But anyways, if you guys want to check out more of these articles, the link's in the description. I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I think, I've been on here like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get off here and go hang out with the family or whatever. But I needed to catch up on what I was doing. So if you guys tune into this video later, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you're watching now, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you don't want to watch it, you want to listen to it, it's on every streaming platform, every podcast platform you could think of. And again, if you ever decide you want to tune in, you can call the number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Chat is also open, and you guys can send me articles to kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here. Until next time, I'll probably stream. I usually stream Sunday through Friday at 7 p.m. And if you guys want to tune in, you can tune in there. But I'm going to go ahead and get off here. I'll be praying for you guys. I'll be praying for the people involved in a lot of these articles. I'll be praying for the people in California affected by the power outages that PG&E are causing, and it'd be a time of year where people are just hanging out with their families and enjoying that type of life. But a lot of them can't even do that because of all the crap that's going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. Like I said, you guys tell your friends, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I find just articles about all types of things, whether they're funny, strange, weird, war, riots, you name it. I talk about conspiracies, UFOs, whatever. I talk about everything. You guys can send those to me to the website, kingsmanreport2019@gmail.com. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here, and until next time, you guys have you know, safe traveling if you're out traveling during the holidays. You guys enjoy the time with your family. Don't take what you have in this life for granted. You know, I'll be praying for you guys. Hope you pray for me. Until next time, shalom.